If you are there, we are going to be taking a look at Ecclesiastes chapter 4. And what I thought we'd do today for Youth Sunday, which is also Mother's Day, is just kind of talk about the family a little bit and really what the family has to do with our Koinonia youth program and what those really have in common. We really do see the youth ministry as a partnership with the family unit, a partnership with parents that really has been really the foundation of what we are trying to do with our youth program, is to partner with parents and to build a strong family unit that is going to, again, build a strong family unit here at the church too. So that's kind of what we would like to explore. So again, if you haven't already, turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 4. As you do that, I'm going to read a quick excerpt from an article that I read this week called Recovering from Youth Culture. Growing up in a church can be a blessing or a curse. Personally, I didn't grow up in a church so much as I grew up in bouncing from church to church, thanks to my family's unquenchable wanderlust. Regardless, I, like so many others with Christian parents, was immersed into that wacky subculture of church for the junior high to high school ages, youth group. Whether it was called Dive In, Impact, Axis, Revamp, Underground, Quench, Elevate, Ignite, or I'm not making this up, Thug, True Heroes Under God. We were all there from approximately 6 to 8 every Wednesday night. Youth group culture was the sort characterized by free pizza, crazy games, hip music, and a youth pastor trying to act way younger than he really was. Sorry if I've been guilty of that. I will do my best to not fall into that category. Youth group, cool kids, were the would-be super Christians. So after leaving my youth group days behind me, I attended a Christian university, which, in case no one has told you yet, can be a bit like youth group on steroids at times. But I digress. In the years that have passed since graduating from high school and then from college, I have noticed a trend within Christian circles. There seems to be a little something affecting young Christians that I like to call youth group culture syndrome. Youth group culture syndrome is like youth group separation anxiety. Or to put it differently, it's what happens when Christian kids don't know how to grow up. Now, tongue-in-cheek approach notwithstanding, I would be remiss if I did not give respect where it is due. Youth groups absolutely have their place because young adolescents usually need that sort of structure and guidance to support them in the early days of their faith. The fun environment offered by most youth groups does much to create an atmosphere conducive to fostering early spiritual activity and an environment that is safe and welcoming to those not necessarily part of the body of Christ. But let's be honest, though. Recovering from youth group culture syndrome is like trying to get over a spiritual hangover. We all had our fun, but it's as if we expect more fun. All we expect is more fun, and we are in for a rude awakening. The so-called grown-up world and the maturing Christian life are not like youth group, and you will not be expected to be a youth anymore. You will suddenly go from fun games that pun on Scripture to the seriousness of big church. The transition can be rather abrupt. There is more to the Christian life than fun games, catchy songs, and dynamic youth pastors, and therein lies the rub. Too many of us have not learned to discern the difference between exciting and thriving. The vitality of a Christian's life in the church he or she attends is not dependent on passionately delivered sermons and repetitive songs that brings everyone to tears. Rather, it is dependent on the simple but earnest pursuit of Christ. As young men and women, we must be proactive and take responsibility for our spiritual lives. Of course, we should continually seek out spiritual guidance and mentorship from someone older. But learning from and relying on are two different actions. So let us each take more joy in the intentional pursuit of Christ than we do in the fun activities that once facilitated our pursuit. And don't worry, there's always free pizza somewhere. Church, we've got a problem. I think we looking back, I'm part of a couple of interesting networks to be able to connect with other youth pastors, kind of hear from their experiences and some of the challenges that they face. And I think the church as a whole has learned a lot from this kind of youth group culture that has been around for quite a while. And looking back, I think we're starting to see some of the ramifications of it. I think it's safe to say that we have a bit of a problem on our hands that we need to figure out how to deal with, both as individuals and as a family and as a church. The problem is that young people are walking away from the faith in record numbers, despite all of these efforts and all of the crazy shenanigans going on at youth group. Something that we're doing is either wrong or it's not enough, or maybe a combination of both. Almost all sources, depending where you look for this information, almost all sources indicate that over 50% of young people walk away from the faith post-high school and college. Some figures, such as the Barna Group and Lifeway, in some of their surveys they've conducted, put that figure actually even higher, at closer to 75% of young people will walk away from the faith. What are the reasons for this? And what can we do about it? That's what we're going to try to jump into today. So to kind of talk about the problem just a little bit more, and then we'll get to solutions, because it's not a doomsday talk. I think a lot of parents have failed their children in a lot of ways. The single most powerful influence on the faithfulness of youth is the faithfulness of their parents. Not only to each other as parents, but also together as parents, their faithfulness to the church that they belong to. Both of those factors, the faithfulness of parents, both to their own family and to their church family, is the single most powerful influence on this statistic. Proverbs 22, verse 6, train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. It's important to understand that these are principles that are predictors of outcomes. It's not a guarantee. Well, I taught this verse to my child and he still went off the deep end. What happened? It's a principle that is a predictor of a behavior. If you want what's best for your family, for your kids, if I want to look at what's best for the youth that are entrusted into our care for a few hours a week, I have to understand that we want to set them up in the absolute best situation for success that we can. We have to leave the rest to God. But we need to do everything that we can. Listen to these numbers. When both parents were faithful to each other and both faithful and active to the church that they attend, 93% of their children remained faithful. There are a lot of figures in between these extremes, but I'll just give you the extremes to show you the contrast. 93% remained faithful if both parents remained faithful to each other and their church. But if neither parent was active or faithful to each other or to their church, that figure dropped all the way down to 6%. Of course, if it was one parent or faithful to each other but not to the church, there's a lot of middle ground here, but that just shows the power that parenting and a strong family unit has on this outcome. Saying that you believe in something really does little for the success rates here. I mean, we could say anything we want to say. But what's really being revealed by these figures is that the more that you're involved in the actual practice of your faith, the practical application of it, this from Focus on the Family, the greater difference it makes in strengthening both the quality and longevity of our marriages. So I think a lot of parents have maybe failed their youth in some ways, but a lot of churches have failed them as well. I don't have children of my own, so I'm more concerned for myself personally about how the church has let them down, because this is the figure that I can relate to and ask myself, okay, so where have maybe I found myself maybe guilty on some counts of something I could have been doing better? Well, I think a lot of churches' efforts are, although enthusiastic, just completely misplaced. A lot of efforts are misplaced. They're passionate about a lot of the wrong things when it comes to youth. I think this is what we learned the most about the early 2000s youth culture that I just read that article about, which was, goofy and maybe a little bit of hyperbole. But listen to this study that was conducted by Fuller Seminary. Most church programs tend to focus on providing entertainment and pizza rather than building up young people in their faith. And as a result, teens are ill-equipped to face the challenges they will encounter upon leaving home. It's no wonder that some young people fall away from the faith if they were never grounded in the faith to begin with. Another distinction that they discovered was that there is actually no correlation between kids who attended youth groups or went on missions trips together. There's no correlation between those kids and the strength of their faith later in life. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do those things. Those are excellent things. But there's no stat that can prove that there's a correlation between how many of these activities you went on and then the quality and steadfastness of your faith later on in life. Because a lot of people will do a lot of things to fit in, go with the flow, be with their friends. All of those things can be motivators here as well. If there is a youth pastor out there thinking that his efforts, programs, trips, and teaching alone are likely to solidify the faith of young people, he is believing this against all evidence to the contrary. So this is not a doomsday speech, this is a call to action. So here's my plea, here's my call to action. If your kids are in Koinonia, if they're considering Koinonia, our youth program, or if Koinonia is something down the road in your children's future, and I saw a lot of those candidates up here singing, and I was kind of counting like, oh, okay, a couple years, or if you're part of the church that's literally propping up and supporting this ministry, if you're the ones that are here, the co-laborers that are holding this thing together, here are a couple things that we need to know. We know what the winning formula is. We know what doesn't work. We know what does work. And the cool thing about it is the Bible already gave us the model, and now the statistics are proving it true. It's like if we had only started in the Word, we might have been able to skip this whole thing. So Ecclesiastes chapter 4, I'm going to read verses 7 through 12. Again, I saw vanity under the sun. One person who has no other, either a son or brother. Yet there is no end to all his toil. And his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so that he never asks, for whom am I toiling, and depriving myself of pleasure? This is also vanity and an unhappy business. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. If they fall, one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him who is alone when he falls, and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. So just to back up and go over some of these words, vanity. What is vanity? He says, for this is vanity, right? I saw something vain. I saw vanity under the sun. And then he tells us what that is. But what is vanity? Worthlessness, futility, meaningless pursuits, empty pursuits, things that are not going to pay us back, not worth our time. They're worthless. They're meaningless. For whom am I toiling, right? There's no meaning, there's no purpose in self-serving. Spinning out the wheels and serving self and toiling alone is not going to pay this person back. It's worthless. It's meaningless. It's vanity. There's no end to the work. And even if there was an end to the work, he's never going to be satisfied with his own riches anyway, because he needs something else to motivate him besides self. No one to share it with. All this spinning and toiling and no one to share the wealth with. Nobody to work alongside. Nobody to pass it along to. Just constantly working and seemingly going nowhere. That's the picture that's being painted for us. Verse 9, two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. And I think the good reward kind of shows itself in multiple ways. Success, I don't know if you feel this as part of a church family, but when someone among us goes through something horrible and endures a crisis, we bear that burden together. We feel that hurt together as if it was something that happened to me. But when something good and positive happens and there's a reason to celebrate, and we watch people getting baptized and making their faith in Jesus Christ known to the congregation, we celebrate with them like it was our own selves being baptized all over again. That's how happy we are for them. We share those things together with them because we're a family. So it is with the laborer. Success in the toil is felt more substantially by two people instead of one. But they also get more work done, so there's more spoil to enjoy. You see how it works both ways? Now, what happens if they fail? Well, if you fall and you're by yourself, you are in serious trouble. But verse 10, if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. Failure is worse. It is magnified when you're alone. And then, of course, this conclusion, which is actually our theme verse and where this whole concept came from and why I got away with wearing a t-shirt to preach this morning. A cord of 3 strands. Verse 12, this is our theme verse. And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, 2 will withstand him. A 3-fold cord is not quickly broken. A 3-fold cord. So, in order to help anchor the next generation to Christ, we have to weave a 3-fold cord. One strand has the potential to snap under pressure. It might not be enough. Christ is the anchor. It doesn't matter how strong the rope is if you're tethering it to destruction. It doesn't matter. Christ is the anchor. A 3-fold cord is the tether. And this is where koinonia was born. This is part of the definition. Koinonia means fellowship. Acts 2:42, they devoted themselves to the disciples' teachings and the fellowship, the koinonia. That is the word that is used in the Greek. They devoted themselves to the disciples' teachings and the koinonia, the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and prayers. So in our fellowship, in our koinonia, we believe that the way to tether the next generation to Christ is with a 3-fold cord. Those 3 strands are God, family, and church. So, number 1, if we're going to try to bring along the next generation and disciple them and teach them that God needs to be first, we are essentially, as a youth ministry, upholding the actual mission statement of Calvary Bible Church. Our mission is no different than the church's mission. It's to make disciples. We hold up the church's mission statement because koinonia exists for the exact same reason as the church does. Encouraging and training the youth to glorify God with their lives is the primary focus. There's a lot of ways that we try to do this, but that is the focus. The first and most important strand in the cord is a proper relationship with the Lord. How are we going to strengthen that? How are we going to model that for them? Well, there's a couple things. We want to teach them how to study their Bible properly. We want to teach them how to work through a text and not take it out of context or just feel the urge to just insert ourselves into passages where it's just not talking about us. We try to avoid those types of things. Last year with the guys in small groups, we covered disciplines of a godly man, talking about what it actually means to practice good habits when it comes to prayer, when it comes to Bible study. We have to build those disciplines. We have to create the discipline to do this. It's a routine. It has to be established over practice, over long periods of time. Those are some of the things that we try to do to help them build those disciplines, tether themselves to Christ. The second strand of the cord is family. Parents are the primary disciplers of their children. So I can do everything that I can to assist. What I can do is never going to be enough. It's simply not going to be enough. And to take that even further, for me to assume that responsibility on myself would burn me out, twist me up, spit me out the other side, and it wouldn't even be right, because that's not what God ordained. It would be the biggest overstepping of my role that I could possibly think of is to go over the heads of families and try to disciple their kids for them. That's not the goal. That's not the mission. Youth ministry was never meant to be a replacement for biblical parenting. Deuteronomy 6, 5-9. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. So according to the biblical model, parents are to impress God's statutes on their children at all times, in all spaces. I mean, just go through that list. As you sit, as you stand, as you walk by the way, as you lie down when you rise, put it on your hands, put it on your eyes, put it over the doorpost, everywhere you can. I got news for you. You don't even need me to tell you this. You already know this. The world is already doing that. The culture is already doing that. They're writing the worldly nonsense everywhere. I mean, it's not going to be enough to endure persecution, 15 hours of your day being absolutely assaulted by a school system that doesn't honor and follow Christ, to be assaulted by media that does not honor Christ, to be absolutely assaulted by all these vain hobbies that don't mean anything. The devil is coming after the kids, and it's going to take more than 2 hours a week to defend them. It just is. So if we're going to follow the biblical model, it's not going to be a 2-hour youth event that's going to do the trick here. It's going to be impressing God's law and statutes on children's hearts at all times and all spaces. I would love to help. I don't have I'm not going to be able to cut it. I can't. In a book, Handing Down the Faith, research found that there are 3 factors in determining whether an adult child remains in their faith past high school. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but here's another angle we could take. Those factors include, the 3 factors that determine whether a child remains in their faith past high school. Number 1, if the family attends church at least once a week. 2, if the parents reported that their faith was extremely important to them. The most interesting one to me. The 3rd one, how often they have conversations about spiritual matters. Probably almost to the point where it becomes annoying. Watching a movie, pause, can't we just finish the show? No, because we got to talk about this. Driving down the road, billboard. We got to talk about this. I mean, after you pass the billboard, of course. I mean, you got to make sure, if we're really going to follow this advice, have conversations about spiritual matters often. I would say as soon as they come up, as soon as they happen. Why wait? I mean, we can't just throw it on the back burner and we'll deal with that some other time or let these issues compound. It's got to be an open dialogue at all times. That's what the world is already doing. That's probably why they're winning in so many cases, is they're just putting forth more effort than a lot of us seem to do. In other words, keeping kids in their faith is nearly impossible without parental commitment. The culture is coming for your kids. It's going to take more than 2 hours of youth group to stave off the wolves. It just is. So that's the second strand in the cord. God, family, and now we've got church. The church exists to equip and assist parents in their God-given roles. So how can we do this? Expository, preaching, inductive Bible study. We're not going to try to wow them with a big show, try to get their attention and make them do all kinds of goofy games. And I mean, those things are all fun and they might hold attention for a time. It's just not long-lasting. It's not sustainable. It bears no fruit. I mean, the deciding factor of whether or not we're going to reach and keep the next generation is not who threw the best, pizza party. I mean, this is so much deeper than that. Inductive Bible study and expository preaching are the primary means by which the youth of Calvary are disciples and equipped to reach the lost for Christ. That I literally copied and pasted from the mission statement that was crafted and handed to me that I agreed to carry out in this youth ministry to the best of my ability. That is my job description. Create an environment that supports, encourages, and deepens the spiritual maturation of youth. Also copied from my job description. Integrate youth into the church body. Youth Sunday. So just from my own experience, and again, just trying to stay in touch with what other churches are doing and where youth group is going in America, just based on my own observations here. Youth groups in many cases seem to operate on their own wavelength. They have their own worship services, their own Bible studies, their own meetings, their own music, set list, their own praise team, their own musicians. They literally exist as their own separate entity in a lot of cases. All this does is make it that much harder for them to integrate once they graduate. That's all it's doing. I like this quote. It's almost kind of a spiritual daycare. I mean, really, like you come, you're entertained, you leave, and if everybody just stays in daycare until they're in college, imagine what a nightmare that person is going to be for society if all they ever knew was daycare until they were college age. I mean, that might be fun, but I think the idea is you're supposed to graduate out of that at some point, long before college. It also kind of makes me wonder, and I don't mean to take any like jabs at any of the particular ministry functions that we have here. That's not my heart. So let's hear me out on this. How many ways could we slice up the same 75 people? I mean, how many ways could we divide ourselves? There's only so many people to go around. How many ways could we cut this up? Paul did not write to the church in Ephesus and ask them, do you guys have a vibrant youth ministry? And then write to Galatia, do you guys have a thriving, seniors ministry? And then he writes to Corinth, and how's your young adults ministry doing? He wants to know the health of the church. It would be better, in my opinion, to have no youth ministry, to have no men's ministry, no women's ministry, no young adults ministry, and no seniors ministry if any one of those existed as a parachurch. If any one of those became really its own church within a church, sowing seeds of discord and disrupting the whole, it'd be better not to even have it. It'd be better to just integrate with one another in a local fellowship. If it ever got to that point where our youth were so detached from the Calvary Bible Church that we really became our own separate entity, that would be the day it's time for the youth group to die and just come to church with the family and plug into discipleship. That would be the last straw. I don't think we need another program to fix this. I think the answer here is organic, intergenerational fellowship. That's the answer. Organic, real, heartfelt, intergenerational fellowship. That's what's going to get it done. Now, each and every one of those ministries that I just went through all have a place and a purpose and have been yielding fruit, and I'm glad that we have them. So my point is not to say that none of those should exist. My point in saying that is, if they ever existed as a separate entity and was actually undermining and weakening the strength of the family unit at Calvary Bible Church, that's time for it to go. So as we try to wrap this up and think more along the lines of application, I have a couple challenges to the youth and then to everybody else. So I'm going to talk to just the youth here. Well, I mean, not just the youth, but I'm going to aim this mainly at the youth, and everybody else can chime in and keep us all accountable here. The challenge to the youth is that if we craft a cord of 3 strands to try to tether ourselves to Christ. The end goal is a very, very, very high calling for you. Very high calling. Are you ready to rise up and meet it? Let me walk you through and explain what this calling is. And it is our big idea for today. The big idea, based on 1 Timothy 4:12, which we're going to walk through in just a second, is that God expects for young people to be what? For all. An example. For how many believers? Which ones? All of them. 1 Timothy 4:12. Let no one despise you for your youth. That's the one that you kind of camp out on. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young. I think that's the NIV, and that's what I memorized in Awana probably. Don't let anyone despise you for your youth. The Bible rebukes people for despising youth for their youthfulness. But I got news for you guys. Don't give anyone a legitimate reason to despise your youthfulness, please. That's a high calling. It really is. I mean, there's a lot that we despise about the way that youth are. Don't go there. Let no one despise you for your youth, but set for the believers an example. It's amazing that we're not just called to be an example for each other, because why stop there? We're actually called to be an example for all believers. If we're worthy to be an example for our peers, well, if we're following God's model and we're obeying his commandments, then that would be a good example for all believers. How are we going to do it? In speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. So first, in speech. 2 Timothy 2:16. But avoid irreverent babble, for it will lead people into more and more ungodliness. You notice how that's kind of how foolish speech and irreverent babble tends to go, is it doesn't just stop with one person that's just spewing foolishness, because you give an audience with somebody else and they think it's funny, and then that gets passed along, and before you know it, you've just got this absolute bombshell of irreverent babble flooding a place. We are called to set an example. Too much speech falls into the category of irreverent babble. It's time to start talking like mature youth. Conduct. Proverbs 29:11. A fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. A fool gives full vent. If I feel this way, I'm going to act this way. Full vent. No filters, no checks, no balances. Just think and boom, that's it. That's what a fool does. But a wise man quietly holds it back. I might feel like I want to do this, but I know that it's wrong. I'm going to take a second, think about it, and I'm going to respond accordingly. That's the biblical model. In love, how are you demonstrating your love? Are you willing to reach out for the people who might be outcast? They really need, it's easy to love somebody who's showing love to you, but are you willing to embrace the person that is outcast in the group? That'd be a great place to start. Because if you notice the model Jesus left for us in his ministry, those are the types of people that he sought out. The sick, the broken, the sinner. That's who Jesus spent his time with. In faith, 2 Corinthians 4:18. As we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. Are we striving and toiling for things that are seen? Because those things are going to go to the dirt. The effort needs to be spent. The faith needs to be placed in things that are unseen. And finally, in purity. And the verse that I took for this section was actually the conclusion to the book of Ecclesiastes, which is where all of this kind of came from. Ecclesiastes, this is how the book closes. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. The book concludes that every single thing is going to be brought to the light. Every single thing. God is the judge. We need to walk in purity. So a couple quick takeaways, and then we'll wrap this up, and we'll call the youth back up here to close us in song. I have a couple of applications for young and old alike. Number one, appreciate young people, the passion and the energy that they bring, because we need that. We need their passion and we need their energy. However, young people, appreciate the wisdom and the experience of the generation that built and kept the church that you have. Don't lose sight of that either. Never get too comfortable in your seat. And what I mean by that is your seat of service or influence. Never get too comfortable. You know what was one of the coolest things that I experienced on Thursday? Was I showed up and, I was trying to make sure that we're looking out for the newbies, right? Sophie Grace joining up with the praise team over here. Kaylee, we got Simon, right? Making sure that they know what's going on, that they don't feel too nervous. And you know what's really cool? I didn't have to say much because Jalen was coaching them. Jalen was making sure that they had everything that they needed. You want to know what's so cool about that? Jalen used to be up here for Youth Sundays too. Now it's his turn. Isn't that the coolest thing ever? Never get too comfortable in your seat, because I'll tell you what, the work of discipleship is never finished until Christ returns. If I decided this is my time, this is my Youth Sunday, and once I get my opportunity, I'm not going to relinquish that. Well, what happens to the next? And then if the next group, this is my Youth Sunday, this is my opportunity, I waited so long and I'm going to seize this, and is not willing to relinquish that and give it up, what happens to the next? Never get too comfortable in the seat. And then the final application, the final plea would be, we all need to make a few friends here today. Let me explain what I mean by this. Everybody needs 3 friends. You ready? Everybody needs 3 friends. Everybody needs a Paul. Everybody needs a mentor, somebody with experience, a teacher, somebody with wisdom to share. If you don't have a Paul, and as corny as this sounds, I am not kidding. Walk up to somebody that you love and respect today and ask them to be your Paul. Do it. Everybody needs a Barnabas, a peer, a friend, a ministry partner, somebody you'd be willing to go to prison with for the sake of the gospel. You'd be willing to go to the missions field. You'd be willing to go to the ends of the earth with that friend, with that ministry partner for the sake of the gospel. Everybody needs a Barnabas. Everybody needs a Timothy. Everybody needs a Timothy, a child in the faith. Somebody to pour into, someone to take a special interest in, and somebody to lift up. Now, I could see how this would be pretty confusing if you went to Timothy and you said, hey, Timmy, can you be my Barnabas? Might get a little bit out of hand here, but I would love to hear, would you consider being my Paul? I know that I need wisdom and insight. I need encouragement. I need discipleship. Will you be my Paul? And I'd love to see the Pauls going around and finding people who you can connect with, and you know that you have some experience that they could really use. Support them. Take them under your wing. But again, I don't want to be mistaken here. Every person, young or old, needs to have those 3 friends. It's not that all the old people need to have a Timmy and all the Timothys need to have a Paul. This goes both ways. This is not a matter of age of young or old, because really it's all relative anyway. There's probably somebody younger than even the young people here. Discipleship's work is never finished. Everybody needs a Paul, everybody needs a Barnabas, everybody needs a Timothy. So to close back where we started in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, investing in your co-laborers are going to do something really cool and exciting for the congregation. It's miserable business, worthless, vain even, to toil alone. But there's something cool that happens when you do that alongside a co-laborer. MacArthur, in his commentary, said, "Life is better with companionship. The futility of labor alone, without satisfaction and without any air to experience its value, is addressed in Ecclesiastes chapter 4. I mean, imagine how depressing it would be to spend all this time and have nobody to share it with, nobody to pass it on to, nobody to share in that joy and excitement. Ecclesiastes 2:18-23, I hated all my toil, in which I toil under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who will come after me. And who knows whether he, right, the man who comes after me, will be wise or a fool. Who knows? And you're gone, so you don't get the satisfaction of even knowing. You pass it all along, and you don't know if the person's wise or a fool. Yet he will be a master of all for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This is vanity. So I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toils of my labors under the sun, because sometimes a person who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. What has a man from all the toil and striving of heart with which he toils beneath the sun? For all of his days are full of sorrow, and his work is a vexation. Even in the night, his heart does not rest. This also is vanity. This is how churches die. This is how churches die. It's a tragedy, because when the time comes, you don't want to look around and realize you have no laborers to pass this on to. That is how churches die. No one to share the spoils with. Nobody to share those joyful moments and victories with. Nobody to pass the work along to, because they're all gone. That's how churches die. So everybody needs a Paul. Everybody needs a Barnabas. Everybody needs a Timothy. And whenever I see it happen, it like there's almost like nothing that makes me that excited. Like I think of Terry Dunlop just taking Timmy under her wing. I mean, looking out for him, not missing a birthday until the Lord called her home. All the people that poured into me. I just know that this is happening, and I'm so happy that it is. But I think it could probably be happening even more, and that's an exciting prospect for me. Will you all bow your heads and pray with me? Father, I thank you so much for this family that we have. And I thank you so much for each and every person who has poured into me and supported me and encouraged me. And I thank you for every single one of the youth here today who are taking that step to really discover what their gifts are and find ways to give them back to you. And I just pray that you would give them many more opportunities to come to do the same thing. I pray that they would be really struck by that opportunity with a deep sense of honor and respect for the calling, and that we would live lives that are worthy of that calling that you have given to us. Thank you so much for Calvary Bible Church and this great family atmosphere that we have. And I just pray that you would strengthen us as we look to make meaningful intergenerational relationships. I pray that you'd help us to do that. And I pray that those relationships would honor and glorify you in all things. Thank you for this youth ministry, and I pray that I would never be a hindrance to it, but that you would work through us, each and every one of the leaders, to make disciples as you've instructed us to do. We pray and ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.